Good morning, everybody. Here is the SPYDR ETF review for this week of the 25th of October. Let's kick off and start with S&P 500. Since last week, we've had a nice rebound from the bottom end of the cloud. So it found support there. And we can now look for the next area of resistance is at the top end of the cloud here at 2116, this zone. And after that, if it manages to break through there, we'll have a rally up to about 217. But nevertheless, it's a significant resistance zone to get through at that level. But so far, so good. Successful rebound from the bottom end of the cloud here, and we're now moving higher. What's interesting here is we had a tremendous long base formation here in 2015-16, double bottom in a base. We've now broken out of that double bottom base, and we were busy retesting the previous highs for support. Now, the risk in this is that there's downside risk back towards the top end of the cloud here. So it's quite possible for the S&P to dip back in within this support base to see how strong that base is and then rally out from there. We could, the MACD is not a very positive signal. We still have a sell signal on the weekly basis here. So we could see some downside back down to 209 area, but on the daily chart, we're still grinding through that resistance within the cloud. So there's downside risk, but we are at a support level of 213. So the short-term trading potential is back up to the bottom end of the cloud here. So there's a good couple of points left in the S&P 500. Okay, the SPYDR, that's a proxy of the S&P 500 index. If we now can drill down into the individual sectors, financial services, yeah, we can see this sector struggled to get past the cloud chart resistance. This corresponds well with an old cloud chart resistance zone on a daily cloud chart basis. So if the resistance holds, we could come back to retest the bottom end of cloud support here at that area. But overall, the front end of the cloud indicate downside on a daily cloud chart basis. So the front end indicate that there's still some significant downside risk. So if we look at the weekly cloud, still struggling to get past the old cloud chart shadow resistance zone there. A significant support area is the $29.12 area in the financial services XLFS ETFs. So this is a significant support area for this particular one. But from a daily perspective, still looking at some weakness here to break past that area. Otherwise, we're going to sell off and come back to retest the $30 zone. Okay. Material still struggling to get past the cloud chart resistance here at the bottom end of the cloud. The front end of the cloud still indicates some more downside to come. Short-term potential is back up to the bottom end of the cloud to try and get past that cloud chart resistance zone. So we could see that and then a sell-off further down. So the short-term upside, but the long-term picture looks pretty bleak. Long-term, this cloud chart shadow, the bottom end of the cloud here is a significant resistance area. So 48.16, watch that area. If we get back up there, which will correspond well with the daily cloud resistance area, we could fall back in this daily cloud downtrend. Okay, so short-term upside, a couple of points up to the top end of the cloud here, and then we could continue the sell-off. SSO, yeah, struggling with the cloud chart resistance here at the top end of the cloud. We need a breakout or a breakdown pass here. Not a particular interesting ETF here because we have significant resistance zone right up here with support range bound. Now that resistance and support is now the new resistance area here. So we're grinding overly, rolling over on a cloud chart basis with the front end of the cloud indicating that we have kind of a downtrend emerging, and we're now struggling with that resistance zone right here at 70. Okay, so we need a breakout or a breakdown here to give us the ultimate direction, but the front end of the cloud indicates that there's more downside to come. So yeah, rolling over once again, bottom end of the cloud here, there's the top end of the cloud, there's significant resistance zone, bottom of the cloud support. Now the front end of the cloud indicate more downside as the downtrend is now in place. So watch out how we're going to respond here at 72. This area might find resistance and then break down to the bottom end of the cloud here. This is a significant support area, 66.75. But this week, critical to watch for a breakout past that cloud resistance zone. Weekly chart also show this double bottom base formation pattern here. The old highs here is now testing for support, so it's range bound between those old highs there. Old highs and lows here, so now it's going to roll over. Could see the find support at the top end of the cloud here. What's interesting here is that we have a MACD sell signal here, so it isn't a downtrend on a MACD basis. So we could see a retest of these lows here on top of the cloud, but the front end of the cloud still indicates somewhat of an uptrend. So you need to buy on the pullback when it finds support here at the weekly chart levels. Okay, but from a daily perspective, we're right there stuck. We need some action here, a breakout or a breakdown, and then that's the trend. We'll trade in that direction on the way. Real estate in a long-term downtrend, stuck in a long-term downtrend as indicated by the cloud. You could see a pullback to the bottom of the cloud to test resistance. Weekly, we're getting pretty close to a key support area. This is a support zone, so we might see a rebound there on a weekly basis. So if you want to get ready for the year-end rally, you might want to look at a position in the next couple of days within this range-bound trade. So yeah, we've got a sell-off, blocks down to top end of the cloud. That's the next support area on a weekly cloud. If we look at the daily, you can see a nice little gap up. And now we're testing that resistance area, that the old cloud, that should now turn into support. So if it turns into support this coming week, then that would be a nice move higher. But from a cloud chart perspective, as it is now, as we're fighting resistance at the top end of the cloud, we have a somewhat of a downtrend in place with this $80 a significant resistance zone. So we need, once again, similar to some of the other ETFs, we need a breakout or a breakdown to give us that direction as to where we're going. Okay, but so far that's a significant resistance area. Right, consumer staples. Yeah, we have a pretty interesting situation. We could see a pullback back down to the bottom end of the cloud, but the overall trend remained down. Positive indication here with a MACD signal. So there's short-term opportunity in there. Fantastic. So there's short-term opportunity to trade back from this rebound, the top end of the cloud, back up to the front end of the cloud resistance zone and old resistance highs. So that we could see that rally take place over the next month or two. Okay. Downside risk is to the bottom end of the cloud, yeah, but it's looking for support at the top end of the cloud. And we could see if it dips back below here or retests it to go back up, then we'll go long. If it dips below the cloud and stays below the top end of the cloud, then we might want to go short on that one. Energy is grinding through the weekly cloud nicely at a nice base in July and September quarter there. Potential support is back here at 66 area. And if we look at the daily cloud, rebound, bouncing off the top end of the daily cloud. So this is a nice one where you just try and pick it up as it rebounds from within the cloud. Okay, but the front end of the cloud still looking strong. We've not yet seen a twist in terms of downtrend starting, but so far just buy the pullbacks on the top end of the cloud. SPYDR, in terms of financial, yes, significant support area is this top end here at 1948 area. So we're looking, we could, resistance here is at 1988. So it's a bit of a range bound here on a daily chart basis. So we could see a retest of the top end of the cloud here to see how strong the support is in that area. Bit of a pullback here on the weekly cloud. Front end of the cloud still positive, so we could see the uptrend reemerge. So you could just trade the pullbacks as it comes back to retest the old highs for new support. But this is kind of in the middle of a trading range at the moment. Overall trend to the right side is moving down. It's rolling over. Top end of the cloud here is a significant support zone. So it could see a rebound from there. So far the trend is up. The MACD is giving a sell signal. So look for a rebound at the top end of the cloud here or at 67 area for a rebound in the healthcare ETF. Okay. Overall trend is still down, but we can now know that we are going towards the old daily, weekly cloud chart support zones, which is pretty much the same as the daily ones here. Industrials also stuck below the cloud, not doing too well. Cloud is a key resistance zone, indicating a downtrend emerging by looking at the front cloud. Yeah, front cloud on the weekly is still positive, but we could see a comeback to retest the old highs here for support to see if those old resistance zones are new support areas. Okay, but it's a critical week to see that we're going to if a rebound to take place here, or if it keeps closing down below the cloud, we're rolling over. And the front end of the cloud just shows that we are heading in a downtrend. We're moving down. So the short-term rally is up to the 58, 57 zone, but currently below the cloud. So that means, and looking at the front end of the cloud, that means we have a downtrend in place. Okay. Technology SPYDR back up, gap back up after rebounding nicely in mid-October from the top end of the cloud here. We can see there. So far, cloud's looking strong. Key support zone here is the 46. So you want to get ready for the year-end rally, any type of pullback and retest of this for an entry point. So far, looking at the MACD to change here. Now, what's the weekly one doing? Weekly one a little bit extended, and I ideally want to see it come back and retest the old highs here at 44, 45, and take that as a rebound for the year-end rally. But on a weekly chart, we might see a bit of a pullback to retest the top end of support. So I would much rather be buying it around the top end of the cloud than buying it when it's extended there. Okay. All right, and then utilities, stuck in a downtrend based on the cloud. Possibilities for rebounds back to the bottom end of the cloud here. We've had a MACD buy signal here, so it could grind its way back up here. What is the weekly one looking at? Weekly one consolidating around the top end of the cloud, so it's at a critical support zone, so it would be a buy around 46, 47, and then wait for the rally back up to the $50 area. But on a daily chart basis, still downside risk. We'd much rather be a buy around these levels, yeah, but that support there comes from that cloud chart shadow support there on the left at around 47, 48. So there's a relief rally possibility back down to the bottom end of the cloud. Okay. So back down to the S&P 500. Critical week, looking for a continuation of this rebound from the top end of the cloud, and watch out how it's going to respond at 216 and 217 area. Okay. Thanks for your time, and happy trading. Enjoy the week.